Hello?
Have you checked the children?
What? Hello, could you get me the police?
Well, there's really nothing you can do about it down here.
Have you checked the children?
He's watching me through the windows.
Well, if he calls again, we can try to trace it.
Why haven't you checked the children?
Please, can't you help me? I'm all alone here. What do you want?
Your blood.
Leave me alone!
Jill, this is Sergeant Sacker. We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house.
Welcome to the latest episode of the podcast that wouldn't die. I'm your host, Kevin. With me, as always, is Aaron.
Are we ready for the second Civil War? Whoop, whoop!
I have to tell you, the episode we put up last week was talking about Christmas, by the way. So keep your time frame specific
it's a
references
historical
to a minimum,
record.
you know what I'm saying? Clearly. This week, we'll be discussing the horror classic When a Stranger Calls, starring Carol Kane and Charles Durning.
That's all you need to know.
That's about it. That's all you need, for goodness sake. So now, when did you first hear of When a Stranger Calls?
I saw this
Do you remember?
my freshman year of high school. I saw this at the theater. I had a boarding school, and you could sign up to go to the movies on Friday. And we went to this tiny little town called Casa Grande in Arizona, and we just saw whatever it was. And sometimes it was a horror. Sometimes it was the movie Zombie. Sometimes it was some ninja bullshizzy. Sometimes you wanted to retch. You just went because it was something to do.
Did you say sometimes you wanted to retch?
I saw Zombie at the school. Took us to see Zombie. So at one point when they're ripping entrails and sinking their teeth into it, I remember just thinking, ugh.
I wouldn't be opposed to doing Zombie on the show at some point. Just
we'll do a
putting it out there.
With Cannibal Holocaust.
Exactly. I first heard of this movie. I was watching this horror compilation documentary.
Just a little Corona.
Excuse you. It was called Terror in the Isles, and it was hosted by Donald Pleasance and, oh my God, the girl from Dressed to Kill. What is her name? Carrie.
The chick who was married.
Whatever.
Yeah,
You know
the chick who was married
Nancy
to the
Allen.
dude, the director. All right.
Yeah, Nancy Allen. And they had clips of this movie with Carol Kane. It's basically just the first 20 minutes of the movie is what they kept showing of it. And my curiosity was piqued. But at the time, there's no streaming. I had to go to like Blockbuster and see if they happened.
It was
to have
always
it. Of course,
checked
they
out,
never
so
did.
then you
It's a
can
very
like
sad
put
situation.
it on reserve,
Yep.
like you were at a library. That was always the worst. And then the other person would just like never bring it back, and then it'd be lost.
They just keep it. It was very upsetting. Upsetting to all of us. Give us your 30-second synopsis of When a Stranger
Babysitter.
Calls.
Obscene phone calls,
Yep.
which was a thing at the time. Check the children, check the children, check the children. Oh dear! Serial killer eating babies. Snap to future time. Serial killer escapes. Not really making it. He was semi-cured, not quite cured. Now he's loose in LA on Skid Row. Later he develops magical powers where he's able to track people down and phone them at restaurants. Charles Durning has an opportunity to bring him in, but tries to kill him instead, which sends this guy over the edge. Charles Durning kills him, the end.
Right. It's not just that he has psychic powers and he knows where people are. He is able to get into any structure. He's like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. Like lock the door. He's already in the closet.
Where you can just be like rubber and slip through the air cracks.
That's the only thing that explains it, frankly. Sad but true. Let's jump in.
I guess I should have just taken a big bite of a peanut butter sandwich, because now you just hear me crunchy and like, poor choice, Aaron.
Is it creamy or is it crunchy?
It's Midland.
That's the first question. I'm not sure that's a choice when you go to Trader
Joe's.
Joe's.
Local vegan place.
Let's jump right into our highlights.
I will tell you, one more thing is the reason that I suggested this was because, I like to think I'm a fancy lady. Champagne tastes on a beer budget. So I follow all these designers, and Prada has for their new line, they release all these little snippet videos, like it's a part of a movie where they're highlighting their fashion. And the current theme is called A Stranger Calls. And I immediately got onto the Facebook Prada going, dudes, do you not know what this means in America? Is Prada coming to kill my babies? Yes.
That's almost as bad as the fact that there's a company called Soylent.
They did, for sure.
You can buy
they did that
various
on purpose.
Products.
These are hipsters. They did that shit on purpose.
They were doing bong rips.
I saw the guy who
invented
it. He's half robot. No, he's pure spectrum and wanted a situation where he never had to interact with humans, eat at restaurants, and just sit in a cubicle for the rest of his life eating his liquid protein.
Well, Soylent Green is made out of people. Oh God! So the first 20 minutes is basically that urban legend that everybody's heard of the babysitter keeps getting calls. Why haven't you checked the children? Why haven't you checked the children? She calls the cops. Later, the cops trace the call.
Oh yeah, that's the
call
best
is coming
part.
From inside the house.
It's called because the cops were like poo-pooing her the whole time. Girl, you're just overreacting. It must be your hormones. You got the crazies with the estrogen. With the estrogen
they didn't say any of that.
Swarming around, yada yada yada. Oh shit! The call's coming from inside the house. Get out!
Yes. Yeah. He definitely sings a different tune when he calls him back.
Oh,
That's
no,
true.
but that was good because it plays on every babysitter's fear because this movie came out in 1979. So I wasn't babysitting, but I wasn't that far from babysitting. And for sure, the doctor has the pager. We'll be back,
Yep.
And you used to get phone calls, hang-ups, heavy breathing. People would just dial random numbers and just do crazy crap. Yep. I can see you. Crank calls, and some of them were just creepy. Okay, first of all, let's just say it was always men, always guys. Occasionally, we would prank our friends, but 99.999, this is a dude thing.
Oh, no question. We love it. Well, there's a whole albums by the Jerky Boys where it was just all them making crank calls on people. Now, granted, there's still a show on Comedy Central called The Crank Yankers.
But that sounds like they're doing something else.
It's not. You're right. It's not just heavy breathing. And frankly, in the serial killer's defense, and the Sergeant Sacker even says, "Well, did he threaten you? No. Did he use any obscenities or profanities?
Yeah, you're overreacting.
Probably nothing.
Don't worry your pretty little head."
You're really painting this officer in a negative light.
It's Charles Grodin. It's not Charles Grodin.
Hopefully not Charles Grodin.
Yeah, I think she could have taken Charles Grodin. No, it's Charles Durning. He always looks like he's half
Charles
drunk,
Durning,
and he doesn't seem like a very good.
He does.
Cop.
He doesn't. Well, later in the movie, spoiler alert, he's no longer working for the force.
I'm
7
sure
years later, he's now a private investigator. Clearly. Okay, so first of all, how old do you think Carol Kane is supposed
35?
to be in this movie? High school? Well, no. Right. Well, 7 years later, she's married with children, but there's the earlier scene where she's the baby.
She has to be high school, but of course she looks much older.
She looks much older. She has a crazy. Was that a popular hairstyle?
You know what that is?
I
That
don't
is
know
a
what that
popular
was.
hairstyle. It's called everybody with curly hair trying to make their hair straight. It's just blow
It's
dry,
nuts.
trying to
It's-
blow dry your super ringlet hair because she has like that super ringlet hair.
But it's like a weird. It's like a bob almost. It's like, but it's a weird like. It's like the Art Garfunkel is what it kind of
What
looks like.
are you
to
saying?
me.
The
I don't know what
Jufro?
the.
Or what exactly? Are you...
No, it was something. I don't use that term though. You anti-Semite. She's talking to her friend Nancy on the phone, saying, "Hey, could you tell Bobby to give me a call?" And she's like, "Well, Bobby asked me out yesterday."
Yeah,
Oh, that's okay.
that ain't
Have him call
happening.
me anyway.
Is that Nancy
What?
Allen she's talking to?
Right? Yeah,
Maybe they're talking about John Travolta.
could be, but could be. My attitude is clearly Bobby's not that interested. Carol Kane might be time to move
your
on.
friend
Don't
is
just be
now
like, well, I'll
totally
still take
breaking
it.
with girl code where you don't go out with your friend's
Yep.
ex. Come on.
Well, there's nobody's ex. It was there's boy Bobby. Both girls like him. Bobby's asking the other girl
There's
out.
still a vague code.
I'm thinking
There's
you're
still a vague code
SOL.
where if you've expressed interest in somebody to a female friend, it's hands off.
That's hands off. Interesting. Let me see. Let me look at my other.
He
Yeah, I
don't
just put
like
he don't
you.
like
he
you.
says you
I
ugly.
underlined it.
He says you look you're
Yeah.
35 years old.
For reals, you're too old. What's this? 21 Jump Street. Here's an important question. So the killer keeps calling and saying, "Why haven't you checked the children?" My question is, why hasn't she checked the
Curiosity.
children?
I always at least go look.
At the very least. Hell
I've
yes,
never been to
you're a
this house
babysitter.
before. Should I at least know what the kids look like? You look once or twice. I was the worst babysitter, though. I remember being shaken awake by the parents. So I didn't wake up when their car pulled up. I didn't wake up when they came in. I didn't wake up until they started shaking me awake that they were ready to take me home. I was out cold.
So when the killer's calling, you're not
Hey,
even answering the phone.
You know,
is what
I
you're saying.
figure if the killer comes, they're breaking glass. That might wake me up. But the best part of babysitting, besides the money, was eating rich people's Haagen-Dazs and stealing their cigarettes.
Hey, he says there's low-fat yogurt in there for you. I mean, is that
Nobody
kind of
wants
an
that.
attack,
And of
by
course,
the way?
did she eat the low-fat yogurt? No, she goes right for the ice cream.
Well, she does that, but she also hits the liquor cabinet. She takes a big slug of wild turkey to deal with her anxiety.
She slugged that back like that wasn't her first time at the rodeo. Yeah, Erin didn't do that. She was good.
Exactly. Did you also notice there was like a basket next to the front door?
Yeah, that
filled
wasn't
with
like
cans?
a thing. I think this was like, I think in Town and Country magazine, you would have these weird collections. Because now we're moving into the 80s. We're starting to hit the 80s where I noticed a lot of Laura Ashley. You got to go into the time machine. A lot of Laura Ashley wallpaper. So we're coming into that era where we collect useless decorative items.
It was literally like 15 cans. One of them was like a bamboo cane. It was like the old bamboo from Chitty Chitty Bang
Yeah.
Bang.
It was a thing. It was a thing to collect useless. Like, I'm going to collect
I'll
old
take your word for
pottery. It just means I have so much money that even after my giant house and I'm making my sob payments, I still have money to go to auctions and buy the old bamboo. I almost took another bite of my toast.
Yeah, please do not do that. So 7 years later, is that the same house that Charles Durning visits the father, Dr.
No,
Mandrakis?
definitely not the same house.
Because now he's got like a butler. I mean, what did he strike you rich?
Cancer.
Did you notice that in the future?
And then, no, that is a full-on.
Clearly.
Because I was trying to figure out, I'm like, obviously this was a budget because you can't even afford to pay the actor who plays the butler to even say hello or who the fuck are you?
You can't. No candy, no
little
SAG
known
card for the
fact,
butler,
If
I'm
they
sad to say.
speak, they get more money, even if it's hello.
Yeah. He tried to throw one in there. Can I help you?
No,
Cut.
we told
Sir,
you.
don't say
There's
anything.
10 people waiting to take your
Yeah.
job. Because I was like, are they in a sanatorium?
Clearly.
Because this is clearly an old LA, 1920s mansion.
It seemed like it.
So I was,
Right.
and then they roll in there. That was like a whole needless giant shot.
Right.
Walking.
So-
And I looked, that mansion is still standing, unlike a lot of the other places where they filmed. Thank you, LA.
Was it like a Windsor? I don't know what the heck it was. What am I, an architect?
No, it was clearly
seven-
Spanish or Moorish style.
So 7 years in the future, we've discovered the kids were murdered. Brutally murdered. They captured the dude who was covered in their blood.
Ripped him apart with his hands.
Oh,
and
God.
teeth.
When
And
Charles
first of
Durning said
all,
that, I almost...
They would have been screaming.
Ugh.
You
Yes.
can't rip two people apart at the same time. Someone's going to wake
Yes.
up because that's got to hurt.
Well, this is the first example of how the hell did he get in the house? Because it's upstairs, right?
And he just happened to
did he
find
scale the wall?
an old phone line, and he knew the number
Yes.
to call.
Yes.
So there's a lot of these
there's a lot of
little
unanswered
interesting
questions.
titty bitties.
You're not supposed to ask any of these questions, clearly. But you're right. They're like, oh yeah, we forgot we didn't disconnect that second phone line. Wah,
So
wah,
you just
wah.
didn't notice that monthly bill? Because that would have been expensive back then.
You think? So Charles Durning was the detective who basically arrested the murderer and, sent him to
Insane
Like,
asylum.
whatever. Insane
He was
asylum.
found not guilty
For
by
7
reason of
years.
insanity because he was insane.
because how
How
could he not be?
be?
The nature of the crime made it, and he was just sitting there when the cops rolled in. I mean, clearly he's nuts.
And they have recordings of
He was
while
sticking
he's
around.
just ranting and raving in the mental hospital.
Yes. So he's been there, and evidently he was doing all right with the treatments that included heavy drugs and electric
Right.
shock treatments. But not so well that he wouldn't try to escape 7 years
And
later.
not so well that, there's no security. And quite frankly,
Clearly
if I
not.
was him, things were not doing well. I think the 2 nights of sleeping rough, I would have gone back, electric shocks or not, because quite frankly, electric shocks, you get amnesia, so you don't actually remember the electric shock. That's part of the thing that fries your brain.
Later in the movie, Charles Durning seems to have the drop on him, and you kind of got the sense that he was
Right.
ready to give up and go back to the insane asylum. And he hadn't
Right.
done anything yet,
Charles Durning pushed
He
him
just-
over the edge. It's his fault.
basically. Yes. Charles Durning is now a private investigator, and he's been sent to hunt down the killer by the father of the murdered children,
Right.
basically, who's now a multimillionaire. And later, Charles Durning talks to his cop buddy, Lieutenant Garber, and basically just tells him, yeah, I'm going to kill him. When I catch him, I'm going to murder him. He's like, well, how are you going to do that? And he says, lock needles. I had to Google that. I have no idea what a lock needle is. It's basically like just a needle. I'm going to poke you with this needle?
Yeah, it's
Is that the plan?
ridiculous. It's
Well, when
stupid.
he gets right. He finally gets the drop on him, and the guy's got his hands up. I give up, and he throws it at him like he's a ninja or something.
And what was that going to do?
Misses.
It's like he's literally throwing
Right.
darts
Ow.
at him. And as
Yes.
we learn
Ooh.
that you ain't dead, so the darts ain't going to kill you.
Right. We've learned. I mean, is it dipped in curare? I mean, what is there some? Anyway, bad plan. Bad plan. When we finally see the killer, his name is Lord, where is it? Kurt Duncan. He is a scrawny little Weasley English
they
guy.
said he was a merchant marine.
Yes. Scrawny. I mean, his voice on the phone was
It was Anthony
creepy. But when you
Hopkins.
see him,
I always thought this character was Anthony Hopkins As his voice totally does. But I was surprised when I watched this again. It wasn't Anthony Hopkins. In my mind, that's who it was. Because his voice on the phone, it was like, Clarice, have you checked the children?
Right. Because it's a crazy little British voice. He's like, have you checked the children? And when he was like on being recorded, it was because he would go into like this hissing, get away from me. All this stuff. That was his voice was creepy. When you saw him, you're like, huh?
Yeah.
This little guy?
Oh my God, he's half naked. and you see him.
Half naked? He was totally naked.
Okay, never 100% after he escaped. But you see the deterioration of his mind the longer he's out. And the worse things work out for him.
Well, it's like he gets out, gets some clothes, gets a little cash, and immediately goes to the bar Torchy's, which I think is a real bar in San Francisco.
Nope, this is all in LA. I looked it up. Torchy's is no longer. It was a real bar, though.
Oh, very sad. It's a real place. So he's going in there to hit on some barfly woman.
She's in everything.
In the creepiest way.
Everything.
Yeah, and he proceeds to get his butt kicked just for being creepy.
Yeah.
Basically. People
social
like,
skills.
This guy is bothering all of us.
No social skills. No context clues. Nothing, man.
Yes. And he follows her home, and she lets him in in her apartment, even though she's clearly not interested. Yeah, maybe we'll do something like my boyfriend's coming. I mean, he weighs about 90 pounds soaking wet. It was the crazy. So he kept waiting for a murder to occur. And then nothing. He's like now homeless, begging for money, sleeping in the laundromat.
It's bad. It eventually works his way to the animal shelter, the homeless shelter,
or the animal shelter.
I don't know how he has 2 cents. I mean, it's like if you're going to escape from prison or escape from anywhere, the whole point is to go get a good meal, go do some stuff, and then most of these people just get recaptured. But what's the point of escaping if you gotta sleep in the cold and eat garbage?
Right.
Man, I guess the insane asylum is bad.
Well, he's like, he might as well have said to the woman in the bar, look, I've been in an asylum for 7 years. I got to get a little loving, if you know what I'm saying. Hook a brother up. Because that's basically what he was doing.
A whole different story.
It absolutely could have. So this is, for the next 50 minutes, it's Charles Durning trying to track down creepy Kurt Duncan, who's just living the life as a homeless transient, basically. Nothing, I mean, no other murders going on. He's a little creepy, but nothing outlandish. At one point, Kurt Duncan, like we said, was running away from Charles Durning and goes to the homeless shelter. And there's a bizarre scene where he's crying in the bathroom.
Oh God,
naked.
yeah. This is all part of that. He's just breaking down. Because I think this would have shown that once he was cornered, he was like going to give up. And Charles Durning could have taken him back. See, one thing I always remember about this is it's like two different movies. The first half is totally scary. And the second half, you end up kind of feeling sorry for the guy because he's so fucking crazy. And Charles Durning is an asshole.
Right. Well, it's literally like, I'm gonna handle this. I was so bothered by the crime, which I understand. But it wasn't like it wasn't like Buffalo Bill on Silence of the Lambs, where it's like for 6 months we tracked down the killer. No, he was there. Anyway, but you're right. He basically was ready to give up, and Charles Durning did his half-ass assassination attempt, which threw him over the edge. In my mind, all the scenes that have Carol Kane in them, in the beginning and at the end, are where it gets really scary. Those are the scary moments. Carol Kane is now reintroduced. She's married with children. Everything's going great. Her husband's got a new promotion. Going out to dinner to celebrate. And you're right. Psychic killer calls her at the restaurant and says, why haven't you checked the children?
How the hell is Hobo Joe now completely crazy? One, know where the hell, whatever the restaurant she's at, or where she lives, or any of that.
Right. So that's the question, because it's like, why haven't you checked the children? Why haven't you checked the
Oh,
children?
but
So
that was good when she got that phone call at the restaurant and she just melts
Yes.
down.
Yeah, she has a freak out. So they all drive home. The cops are coming. They do a half-assed
Oh, my
search of the
God.
house. Kids are fine. Babysitter's like, what? My phone disconnected. Sorry. What? What's
Get
the big
out.
deal? So everyone goes to bed, but Carol Kane is having trouble sleeping. So she's like, well, I'm going to go check the children. They're all fine. Is there somebody in the closet? No, there's no one in the closet. So she goes back to her room, lays in bed, and then she hears whispering seemingly coming from the closet.
Oh, that was such a good scene.
It was great. You can't see me. I'm here. So she goes and tries to rouse her husband sleeping next to her. It's not her husband, it's the killer. That was a great moment. That was a great... I stood up and applauded.
Bravo,
Whoa!
bravo. Indeed.
And now he's nuts and he attacks her. Charles Durning arrives because her phone was busy, and he shoots him dead. But you're right. How did he know where she lived? Assuming she's not living in the Mandrakis' old home, right? Like, she tracked him down, or he tracked her down, tracked her at the
Yes!
restaurant, snuck back into the house where the cops were there.
He's like
Right?
a Spider-Man.
House
He's
locked
got
up.
magic powers. That's all. Magic. That's the answer to everything. Magic.
The husband had a shotgun next to the bed to make the wife feel better, and he still got his
Yep.
ass beat. Everything's
Obviously,
fine.
they're
Killer's
hard sleepers
killed.
like Aaron.
Clearly.
The killer could have
Sweet
rearranged
Jesus.
my furniture, and I would still be like snoring on the couch.
you sound a little bit like the killer.
But
Get away from me, Smeagol.
so this is probably the third time I've seen this movie. The first time, it was a horror. We would go and scare the girls. I lived in a dorm in high school. So we would call the other
Nice.
dorm. Have you checked the children? It'd freak everyone out. Ah! So that's when I was 14. I saw it maybe 20 years after that and thought, meh. But now, watching it
Right.
again, I think it's pretty solid.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. The opening scenes and the closing scenes, because I remember the opening scene vividly. The closing scene I had clearly forgotten.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the hammer. The final scene. Oh man, that was great. She tries to wake up her husband.
It's kind of a complex little film. It's not like Halloween where
is.
it's just things are popping up and you don't know why or what. This has
No.
got like a story and quite frankly, the guy who plays the killer, his acting is very complex and subtle. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it was like I couldn't take my eyes off him because he had a reaction and a gesture that was very thought out. It was
Yes.
it was
Oh,
not
he's-
soap opera acting for sure.
Not at all. I mean, that's kind of the thing. Is it's like you're used to seeing these movies where the killer is a big hulking menace, and that was not this. That was not this at all. Crazy town. Shall we go to behind the
Lay it
scenes?
on me.
They originally shot the short film called The Sitter, which is just the first 20 minutes of the movie. But based upon the huge success of Halloween, which was originally called The Babysitter Killers, he brought it back and fleshed it out and expanded it to about the pursuit of Kurt Duncan,
Yeah, because I
the
think
killer.
this is just 1 year after that. I think Halloween was like 78 and this was 79.
Yeah. Yep. During that opening scene, each time the phone rings, it gets louder
Yes.
and louder and louder. To increase from eerie to jarring to finally infuriating is what they say.
Yeah. And Carol Kane was great.
Carol-
I love Carol Kane.
Carol Kane, she was on Taxi at this
Was
point,
she?
right? Absolutely.
Lord.
It's my
All
understanding.
right.
Good Lord.
I didn't think Taxi came on till later. Keep
Well, it was in the
talking.
70s. You look it up. The killer, Kurt Duncan, was based upon a college acquaintance of the director who could just enter a room and automatically make others in the room uncomfortable.
Taxi started in 1978.
See? There you go. Well, when did
Well,
Carol
they
Kane get
don't-
on it, though? She
They
wasn't
don't
there at the
tell you
beginning.
that.
This is important. Yet the director felt enough sympathy for this person that he felt like, I'm going to add some of that sympathy into this movie for that character, even though the gruesome details of the murder, you don't see anything. I don't think you see any blood at all in this movie. You do see two little body bags coming down the stairs, though, at the beginning of the movie. Good Lord. The description of the murder was as unsettling as anything I've heard in a movie. It was awful.
Oh yeah,
awful.
Awful. But that's the beauty. It's more awful to not see it.
That's true. Tony Beckley, who played Kurt Duncan, was terminally ill throughout the production.
He died 6 months after this movie. He could have really hit it hard. Right.
He basically, they said that because of his illness, he fit the description of the killer less and less. But the director refused to recast him because he was a good friend.
Was a good friend. So. And I think it was brain cancer, but they think it was really because of AIDS, but it really wasn't called AIDS back then.
Or eggs.
I'm going to throw an egg at you.
Kevin Williamson paid tribute to this movie in the opening scene of Scream, because it's basically the same kind of thing. A killer calls the house and you're talking to the killer sort of thing. It's not exactly the same thing, but that was kind of his inspiration. The opening 20 minutes of the film are number 28 on Bravo's channel's 100 Scariest Movie Moments, and is repeatedly called one of the scariest openings in horror film history.
It's fantastic.
There you go. Yep.
Are you ready? You didn't join until season 3.
You're late on me. So, yeah. So this kind of set her up for that. There you go.
Simca.
I think that's about it. Simca. She was Latka's wife or girlfriend or whatever.
The only reason
Very
I watched
sad.
Taxi were those two anyway.
Let's move on to the cast. We talked about Carol
Did
Kane.
you talk about how the killer went to the Royal Academy of Arts and that's why he's a freaking real actor?
He had been in things prior to this. They didn't just find him at the local community theater. At the laundromat. Carol Kane, obviously. Taxi. She was in Princess Bride.
The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
That is true as well. Let's see. Charles Durning, Dog Day Afternoon, The Muppet Movie. He was Doc Hopper.
I just watched the Muppet Movie not that long ago.
Yeah, ton of stuff, obviously. Let me see. The killer, Tony Beckley, was in The Italian Job, the original, with Michael Caine. He was in Get Carter with Michael Caine.
That's a song by the Human League.
Yeah. All sorts of good stuff. This is, like we said, this was his last movie before he died.
He was on fire. He was fantastic.
Charles Durning's buddy, Ron O'Neill, played Lieutenant Garber. You might recognize him. He was in Red Dawn. He was like the Cuban general.
But I've seen him in other stuff. Keep going.
He was in Superfly. He was the titular character in Superfly. And a few other things.
He looked familiar. Oh, damn you.
He was a very, very successful actor.
Superfly.
Very sad. You should see it. I think that's about it. Anybody else you want to talk about?
Solid. Love Carol Kane. I always thought she was from some foreign country, but it's just her crazy, weird speech impediment. She's like from Ohio or something. And she was, because she has been embarrassed by her voice.
I was just going to say, because she's got like a little baby girl voice.
And
which means even though she's 35, even though she's 35, she can play the high school freshman, basically.
And she's
very
sad. Like a pixie. She's like 5'2".
Right. Let's talk about our ratings. When a Stranger Calls, 41% rotten on Rotten Tomatoes.
That doesn't sound right.
Don't sound right. They actually made a made-for-TV sequel to this, When a Stranger Calls Back, where Carol Kane and Charles Durning reprised their roles. New killer, though.
And they did a redo of it, too.
They did in the late 80s.
Is it a
I believe.
reimagining or is it?
Or sorry, yes, they did it. They did one in 2006, a remake.
All right.
My bad. I think it. I don't know. It could be a reimagining for all we know. Okay, I will say again. First 20 minutes, dynamite. Last 20 minutes, dynamite. The middle is kind of a sad drama. You know what I'm saying?
Watching somebody, basically,
If you can deal with
watching
that.
someone who you know is going to just fully lose their mind, and it's the quick slip. It's the Joker. He could have been the Joker.
Right. If the Joker was homeless, basically. Very sad. So what is your personal rating?
Dude, I'm going to call this 5 out of 5.
5 out of 5.
Simca, children in a body bag, bad babysitter.
I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 naked homeless man.
I was
That's my
wondering how
plan.
far down they were going to keep panning because I was already seeing some crack.
You saw, I don't know what edition you were watching. I saw full butt.
Okay. Maybe
It was
I blacked
basically,
out.
it was
I
Butt
probably
Town.
wondering if I was going to see something else.
Just, oh God. Sweet Jesus. So there you have it. Go to our page on Facebook, Podcast That Wouldn't Die. Go to our page on Twitter, Podcast TW Die. Email us at the Podcast That Wouldn't Die at Gmail. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc., etc., etc. And Aaron, you are also on
The
social
Cult of
media.
Aaron. Join the cult. I'm on the Insta and the Twitski.
So
Not
check
Parler.
it out.
I'm
Parlay.
not on. What was that other shit that they were pulling? I'm not
Gab.
on Gab. Not on Parlor.
4chan.
I discontinued my MySpace. I've let my Fortran go.
Stormfront.
I'm a stalker
You're not on that as well?
Reddit, but that's it.
Very lovely. So there you have it. Go to our. I'm just repeating myself. There you have it. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day and
Later,
be well.
people. Don't storm the Capitol. I'd appreciate it.